Shield Hero Season 3, Episode 4 came out a couple weeks ago, and I actually waited for this one to see how much they were going to do with it. And this will be a pretty short video because they were pretty good covering the details on this one. Here you can see where Naofumi is feeding all the slaves, and this is a little bit reordered because they put the king, Sing, Atla, and Foal at the end of last episode, and it's actually the beginning of this chapter. But here we get to see the art in the book of Sign coming to try to get breakfast from Naofumi. So you can see here she's being questioned by Naofumi and why she's there, and she talks. And in the book, Naofumi describes the breaks as static, and the show does kind of like a toned down version of that, so it's not super annoying. But you can see these lines in her speech are supposed to be the parts that he just can't hear or can't understand. And you find out that she wants to help with the waves, and she tells Naofumi that the heroes are too weak in their current state. And this is where he explains to her that the curse is why their stats are lowered right now from when he used the Wrath Shield at the end of last season against Kyo. And he gets frustrated to the point where they can't really have a conversation, and her voice is getting worse the longer they talk. He asks her if she's one of the vassal heroes from his world, and he realizes that she's not. But he can't figure out what her deal is because her speech is so broken. And this is where we get that scene from the show where she keeps walking super slowly and turning back like she's waiting for Naofumi to tell her to stop. And it's pretty funny in the book too. But I also like this scene because it shows that Naofumi's trust in people has essentially been demolished still by Bitch. Naofumi, Atla, Foal, Sedina, they all go and teleport to the castle, and they're all just kind of making small talk about it and how it's uncomfortable for the demi-humans to be in the human supremacist castle and how big it is and stuff. And actually in the book, Atla is already walking, and this is where we see the stuff with Trash, where he sees her and like kind of freaks out, but we don't know why yet. And really all you get from this scene is Trash freaking out and saying that the shield has infiltrated the castle with the Hakuko, and he calls them bastards, and he like kind of just loses his mind. And there's also that little line where Atla is like, brother, why are there two of you? Because Atla can see people's like auras, essentially, even though she's blind, because she's really in touch with the Hengen Muso style stuff, the life force. And I don't think the show goes into these details, but here the queen explains why Trash freaked out, and she calls him Luge, which I guess is his real name, the staff hero, and explains that he had a younger sister who was blind and her name was Lucia. She says she skips all the details, but she says that his name is Luge Lansars Falbri, so he was the youngest prince of Falbri, but he had to relinquish his rights to the throne because of an incident where his entire family and parents and everybody that he loved were murdered by the Hakuko. And Trash and his sister survived because they had been away at the time, so they weren't there to be assassinated. And then she explains that for political reasons, Falbri made no attempt to hold Siltvelt accountable for this assassination. And because they wouldn't do anything, he got really pissed off, moved to Melromark, and changed his last name. And then he used this anti-demi-human country to create a reputation for himself by being a really impressive soldier and officer, and the country was always at war. And that was how he got to be the 7-star staff hero. And the queen also explains that when she was young, that this is how he won her over and she fell in love with him. And she explains to him that Trash was finally getting his revenge slowly against Siltvelt and Falbri, and his blind young sister was attacked by a Hakugo and presumed dead because of the bloody scene, but her body wasn't ever actually found. And this led to him confronting and overthrowing the king of Siltvelt, who was a Hakugo. And the queen says that Atla is the spitting image of his younger sister. The implications here are either one, that she wasn't killed, she was taken back and raped and conceived Atla and Foal, or she might have been in love with one of the Hakugo and kind of run off with him and they had kids together. But they don't know, obviously. And we find out that Foal's last name is Phaon, and the queen says that he should stay by the shield hero's side and that his late grandfather would be thrilled. And Trash is the one who killed his grandfather, obviously. And they make some small talk about resetting the levels, and the queen explains that the girl from the Spear Heroes party was actually part of Melromark's nobility, and she just came home one day and worked at her family's business like nothing had happened. And pretty much the queen has decided not to arrest her as long as she agreed to try to lure Motoyasu to her. So she's kind of being used as a trap so they can hopefully get the Spear Hero back, even though they don't intend to punish him. And we go to the level resets, and there's a nice little detail in here where the people who have been relying on their level more than training their bodies apparently need to be carried out on stretchers. But Sedina and Full are able to walk out. They just feel a little bit sluggish. And just like in the show, he sends them to go level up, and him, Raphtalia, and Philo go to look for Moriyasu. And the show did a pretty good job of all this. The girl Elena, who's from Moriyasu's party, is a total bitch. So essentially he got a party of 3 girls who were just complete assholes. And there is a little thing in here where Naofumi is listening, and he's thinking about how he's playing mom to the village and cooking for him every day, and how one of them called him the cooking pot hero. And then he's like thinking to himself he's going to work the soldiers to the bone during the Reconstruction because he's pissed off, because he's always very petty in the book. And here's the artwork in the book. You can see where it kind of sets in for Moriyasu. This girl just doesn't give a shit about him anymore. And the girl kind of lays into him about how he's hitting on girls everywhere and doesn't even understand them, and he treats them like nothing more than a status symbol. And Naofumi's sitting there like smiling to himself and taking pleasure in it the whole time. And I don't remember this line being in the show. Maybe it was. But when Moriyasu realized that she sold him out, she's like, I'm going to side with whoever's the strongest. I always have and always will. After she told him to go make something of himself like the shield hero did. And Naofumi says, what a shitty thing to say. If I were Moriyasu, I'd forget about morals and laws and all that and thrust my spear right through your black heart. And obviously, Moriyasu is like still weirdly simping for her and defends her. But it's just like the show where Naofumi tries to talk to him and he ends up teleporting away. And the shield hero talks to her, and this is where we get the backstory, just like in the show, where they all attacked and the spear hero was like, oh, our level's plenty high enough, but he couldn't actually do any damage to it. And they end up getting ignored by the tortoise, and he wasn't even a threat to it. And in the next chapter, they're going to sell some things on their way back to the village. And this is where Naofumi runs into the bandits and Ren. And the bandits always go pale when they see him, because this is the 3rd time that they run into Naofumi. And Naofumi, the last 2 times, told him to give them all their stuff, and he destroyed their base. And his threat was that Philo was going to eat them. So he had been sending them with the police or whoever, and they escaped every time. So Naofumi tells them to give them the location of their hideout right away, and they do because they're scared. And he sends Philo and Raphtalia to take care of it because he wants to talk to Ren alone to not scare him off. Naofumi talks to Ren at the tavern, pretty much just like the show, and he explains that the guilds all want him to go back to Melromark. So when he clears out monsters or hunts bounties or whatever, he has to give it to some lowlife in order to get his reward money, and they take a cut of it. And he's kind of bitching about how differently he's being treated now after the Spirit Tortoise incident. And Ren's story, just like the show, is pretty similar to Moriyasu's, where he thought that the level 80 Spirit Tortoise wouldn't be a big deal, and they wanted to get the jump on the shield hero for all the powerful weapons and stuff. So they tried to take it on early. Obviously, his whole party died. Naofumi saw the shadow of Moriyasu, so he wants to go follow him, and he tells Ren, hold on, he has some food in the carriage. And then when Naofumi comes back, he sees Bitch and Girl 2 talking to Ren. And this is where Bitch goes to talk to Ren and starts manipulating him, and Naofumi gets pretty pissed off, but Ren buys it all because he's so desperate to believe that it's not his fault. So he needs someone else to blame, obviously. And the show did all this pretty accurately. And here's some artwork from the book of the part where Naofumi finally snaps because of Bitch's lies and just goes off on Ren about how he won't take responsibility for anything, and yeah, the situation sucks that they pretty much got kidnapped, but they're here now, so all they can do is fight and try to get stronger. And Ren just keeps blaming Naofumi and everything else, obviously. So they have their fight, pretty much just like the show. Ren escapes with Bitch, and Naofumi tells her that he's going to chase her anywhere and she should fear for her life, and he's going to send her to hell. And Moriyasu is super depressed, and Naofumi's like, if I take him back to the village and he sees Sedina and Atla hanging all over me, he's probably going to kill himself. So that's why he opts to hang out at the pub for a bit. And then we get Philo's little idol song, just like the show, and where Moriyasu falls in love with her. And even when she transforms into her bird form, he says it still smells like her, and he's all over her. So yeah, it's all kind of depressing and kind of funny. And this is where Philo runs Moriyasu and throws him off a cliff and has patches of feathers missing. And then this is how they get rid of him temporarily. And this is the part where they sleep in the tavern. Naofumi wakes up and Moriyasu is guarding the door and calling him father. And he calls Raphtalia a tanuki pig, which is pretty funny. And you'll find out later, this is like a really minor spoiler. But essentially, he sees every woman now as a pig version of themselves, except for Philo. Eventually, they escape Moriyasu and teleport back. And Naofumi says that he wants to give the Queen an update on Bitch. And they reference again that the Spirit Tortoise messed up the border, and this is where some criminals escaped, and probably how Bitch escaped and got rid of her slave crest and stuff. And the Queen asked that she be brought back alive if possible, and then Naofumi eventually agrees that they can put a higher bounty for alive, but dead is also fine. And you find out that the guard who had the slave curse died in the Spirit Tortoise attack, and that they also want Bitch alive to expose whatever remnants of the church are still crazy and out to get the Shield Hero. And part of the reason the Queen also wanted her alive was to sacrifice her. And by sacrifice, she means marry off to some disgusting guy that would make any woman want to commit suicide. But at this point, that exemption isn't a threat enough because she's obviously doing whatever she wants. So this is how they come to agree upon the dead or alive bounty. And that's where this one ends. It's a pretty short one. They did a pretty good job. They covered about a third of the book, roughly. It's hard to say exactly because it's all a little bit out of order to compress for time. But yeah, they did a good job with this one. I'll try to get my Season 3, Episode 5 out videos soon too, because now I'm 2 behind. All right, if you're here, like and subscribe and stuff. See ya. Thanks.